Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my movie vlog. My name's John Campea, and this is part 6 and the final part of our Avengers Infinity War spoiler discussion. Now, but for those of you who may not understand what's going on here, none of these are new questions. It's just that we did a couple of Avengers Infinity War live videos, but so many people contributed comments and questions that we ended up having to do a part 3 just to catch up on those, and then a part 4 to catch up on those, and then a part 5 to keep catching up, and now we're on part 6. These are all still from the original broadcasts. These are not new questions. This isn't anything new, but you know, everybody sent in questions, and I made a commitment. I'm going to answer every question that got sent in. So this is part 6, finally clearing up weeks later all the final bit of questions that came in. And you know, it's been tough trying to find time to put together to get these last ones addressed and tucked away, but we're going to do that today. Now, I'm going to go through fairly quickly these ones because a lot of these questions will be very similar or identical to some of the questions and comments that already got submitted in the other 5 parts of the videos. But again, if you guys submitted a comment question, it gets addressed. And even though it's late coming, I've had to do 6 parts. We're on to this part 6 right now. So let's get things going here. And we're going to start with Nate Miller, who writes, is it possible that Homecoming 2 takes place before Infinity War like Ant-Man and the Wasp? Thoughts? Also, Thanos is better than Heath Ledger's Joker for me. It was just way more depth. Yeah, like I've said before, I'm starting to believe that the Thanos character was a better villain character. I'm not saying Josh Brolin's performance was as good as Heath Ledger's performance, but the written character of Thanos, I'm thinking, is the better overall villain in a comic book movie. Again, not saying that Josh Brolin's, there's never been a villainous performance as good as Heath Ledger's Joker. Never been a better performance. But the overall character that Thanos gave us was a better one. As far as the Spider-Man 2 one, like I said before, it would seem like a bit of a stretch because Captain Marvel's going to be before Infinity War. Ant-Man and the Wasp is going to be before Infinity War. Do you really go that route with Spider-Man 2, with the second Spider-Man movie? Seems like a bit of a cop-out. Especially now, remember this question was sent in weeks ago, but earlier we found out that Mysterio is going to be the villain in the next film. So I think that's something we would have heard about before if it was going to be a prequel. Pop Culture Art Co. says, original Avengers will die in Avengers 4 Saving the World. The thing is, a lot of people said a lot of the original Avengers were going to die in Civil War. Then they said they were going to die in Avengers 3. And now they're saying they're going to die in Avengers 4. Which ones will, which one won't? We'll just have to wait and find out. Mark Sauce writes, I think different heroes will take the dead hero's place, like Shuri for Black Panther and Miles Morales for Spider-Man. I don't expect to see Miles Morales in the Marvel, in the MCU. Don't expect that. But that doesn't really address anything. Because if certain characters just take other characters' places, what happens to the other 75 trillion beings in the universe who got dusted? So there might be a little self-sacrifice. I mean, that's a common theme in hero movies, is self-sacrifice. We might see some self-sacrifice for the greater good, but I don't know like a direct one-for-one swapping. Maybe. We'll have to find out. Nothing Here writes, Spider-Man is the only one who made me shed a tear. That scene was great. Again, though, my emotional investment in the scene was a little bit undercut by the fact that we knew he wasn't really dead. Like, he's coming back because we've already got Homecoming 2 planned and scheduled. So I might have shed a tear if it wasn't for that, but the fact that I knew he's coming back kind of undercut the emotional potential of the scene for me, if you know what I'm saying. 355 Mike writes, I don't get it, John. If the dusting deaths will be reversed, why don't they reverse all deaths? I think all the damage caused by Thanos will be undone. But, I mean, even within the terms of the logic framework of the movie, that doesn't make any sense. Like, a whole bunch of characters die as a result of one thing. Well, then if they can undo that one thing, that doesn't undo everything else. So, I don't know how that makes any sense. But who knows? They might have a mechanism for that they might want to put forward, and we'll see what they do with it. Nightwing writes, personally, I'm tired of Marvel's use of the Hulk. I think he is a criminally underused character. Hopefully, he is more involved going forward. I don't know, man. He was pretty heavily involved in Thor Ragnarok. He's been pretty well involved in almost every film. Remember, Marvel's in a bit of a bind in the sense that they can't use Hulk in his own standalone movie. So no film can be an Incredible Hulk film, or else Universal gets to do the distribution of that, and that's not something Marvel wants. I think they've used him pretty much as well as you can use a supporting character, understanding that he needs to be a supporting character, but I think they've used him pretty well, to be honest with you. But let's see what their plans are moving forward. Maybe they'll get him even more involved than he already is. Andrew Sealer writes, is the pager communicating through time or no? Well, I don't know. We're talking about the post-credit scene with the Captain Marvel logo on the pager. That was not a normal-looking pager. So, could it be communicating through time? Maybe. Could it be communicating to another dimension? Maybe. Could it be communicating to another far-off distance planet somewhere? Maybe. There's a lot of... Or maybe... Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, is just hanging out in Utah somewhere. Just wants to be retired and, she's being called back into action. Now, if that's the case, why didn't they call her into action when the Chitauri were invading New York City in the first Avengers movies? Who knows? But maybe it's clearly not a regular pager. Maybe it's communicating through time. Maybe it's communicating through dimensions. Maybe it's communicating to another far-off distant world. We won't know until we see Captain Marvel. Fortunately, we got less than a year before we see that movie and understand how they're going to fit that all in. Santiago Villa writes, with 630 million worldwide, it has already made a profit. Wow, yeah, this was a question that was sent in a couple weeks ago. It's now over 1.8 billion. It's getting ready to cross that $2 billion mark, which is going to be only the fourth film in all of cinematic history, just the fourth film in cinematic history to hit the $2 billion mark. Kevin Campbell writes, should we be worried about the second week drop-off for Infinity War, since most people will have seen it in week one? Can it survive on just repeat viewings? Well, remember, and obviously it did do pretty well its second week. Yes, a lot of people saw it, but remember, there was nothing significant opening up against it in week 2 or week 3. It wasn't until this weekend that Deadpool 2 opened. That was the first time Avengers Infinity Wars had any significant competition. So, yes, a lot of people already saw it on week 1, but there was no legitimate competition in week 2 or week 3, so it stood up pretty well. Let's see. John Posey writes, Gamora is the only one that should come back before the quote-unquote dusting. She died in acquisition of the Soul Stone. She is in the Soul Stone. Star-Lord has to go in there in Guardians 3. I mean, they might do that. It's still a cheap cop-out. She didn't disappear. Like, if Thanos had picked her up and threw her off the cliff and then her body vanished in a bright yellow light and was transported into the Soul Stone, you then set yourself up a little bit. But instead, he killed her. He sacrificed her, and we saw her body, broken down on the rocks below. Her body didn't vanish into the Soul Stone. I mean, so I don't know. Whatever they do with that, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a cheap gimmick. I'm not happy with the way they're handling that. But who knows? I mean, they may have 17 different ideas that we're not even considering yet, and I'm not even considering yet. And maybe it'll be something great. We'll have to wait and see. Digital JP writes, why is everyone stating that the vanishing dust is death? I look at it as the gem putting the characters in another dimension. What do you think? Well, that's completely inconsistent with everything they said in the movie. Never once, when people were confronting Thanos about, your answer is slaughtering half of life, and instead of saying, no, I'm not slaughtering people, I'm going to send them into a different dimension. Whenever I say you're going to slaughter half life in the universe, his reply is, small price to pay. Small price to pay. Why kill half of the Asgardians on the ship if he's just going to get the stone and just send half of them to another dimension? Thanos never said anything about just sending them to another dimension. He talked about slaughtering them, killing them for the greater good, in his opinion. So if they did something like that, and I'm not saying it's impossible that they do that, but if they do, it's inconsistent with what they stated in the movie. So that's just something they're going to have to wrestle with a little bit. Music Lover 8594 writes, John, what did you think of the Iron Spider suit? I thought it was terrible. I still don't like it. I think it's awful. Lincoln in 6 Echo writes, if Captain Marvel is in the 90s, what the hell happens to her because Fury and team never talked about her? Next one going to be crazy time travel. Well, I mean, there's a million things they could have done with her. Again, we're going to have to wait till we see the movie. But there's a million different explanations. She kept her presence secret. She fought the alien thing quietly. The rest of the world didn't even know that the world had been invaded by aliens before. So maybe it was kept all hush-hush. At the end of it, maybe she goes into stasis. Maybe she travels to a different dimension. Maybe she goes to another world. Whatever. There are many, 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 many different possibilities. that the writers of Captain Marvel have at their disposal to explain why nobody other than Fury really knows about Captain Marvel. Well, Fury and Agent Coulson, because apparently he's going to be in the film too. But they have dozens and dozens and hundreds of possibilities they can do. Kadur Padgur writes, why did Thor go to Wakanda when Thanos was on Titan? I think just probably because he knew that's where the fight was. And probably that's where he knew where his main need was at the time. So how did he know? Not sure. They didn't go into that into detail, but they didn't really need to because it's kind of not important. Adam K. writes, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 also announced, so we know they're not dead. I mean, yeah, there's that too. We already know there's a Guardians of the Galaxy 3. James Gunn's been on Twitter talking about how he's finishing off his script for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, so clearly they're all coming back. Let's see. Leanne Maxey writes, over under 40%, Deadpool makes a reference to the fallout of Infinity War, either through a line from Deadpool or Cable. Well, since we've already seen Deadpool 2, we know that that's a 0. Many references to the MCU in Deadpool 2, which we were kind of expecting, but nothing about the fallout of Deadpool 2. That would have been, or the fallout of Avengers Infinity War, that would have been really crappy for Fox to do because a lot of people, there are still people out there who haven't seen Infinity War yet. So for them to come out and do a movie and give away a major spoiler to that movie, a movie that's only been in theater 4 weeks, that would have been really, really douchey of them to do. So thankfully they didn't do that. Lucky Wonder writes, it's interesting that Scarlet Witch and Thanos both killed somebody they loved for what they believed was the greater good. Well, Scarlet Witch killed one person that she loved in order to save billions. Thanos killed one person he loved and billions of other people in order to achieve what he thought was the common good. It wasn't an even mere reflection. Scarlet Witch killed one person. Thanos killed billions, including one that he loved, but billions. So they're not exactly mere reflections of each other when it comes to their circumstances. Daniel Castro writes, wow, this is such a great movie. Most memorable scene, Thor appearing in Wakanda with Rabbit and Tree. Still can't believe the bad guy won. Love the show. Keep up the good work. And yeah, it's ballsy ending. Raises a lot of questions. But yeah, I don't know that it's my absolute favorite scene in the movie, but that scene when Thor shows up in Wakanda, chills. Just absolute chills. A spectacular moment in that film. Ben Hayusa writes, Nick Fury at the end credit scene before going to dust says, as only Samuel L. Jackson would say. Also, I love the movie. Makes me more anxious for next year. Yeah, it's a solid movie. Again, not in my top 3. Avengers Infinity War isn't in my top 3 favorite Marvel films, but it's probably in the top 5. Solid movie. It did some really wonderful things narratively, and you're right, it just leads us all to going, well, what the hell are they going to do with Ant-Man and the Wasp and with this Captain Marvel, and what are they going to do in Avengers 4? It leaves us all pretty anxious. Nathan Diggs writes, will Red Skull return since the Soul Stone is gone? I'm not sure. I've wondered about that. I love the Red Skull character. I think that character is fantastic. I would love to see the Red Skull character back. I don't feel really any confidence that we will. But the door is certainly open, and they can bring him back if they want. But, I mean, at this point, I just don't know. I can't think of a really good narrative. Can't think of a really good narrative hook that brings him legitimately back into the story. But then again, just because I can't come up with one doesn't mean their writers can't. So maybe they will, maybe they won't. We'll have to wait and see. I'd be all for it, though, because I love the character. Dakota Barber writes, also love Doctor Strange and Wong in this movie. They were awesome. Like, the way Strange and Wong were tag teaming and the way they were fighting like Nama was incredible. I thought that was great. I was really a little bit sad that once Wong left the movie, we didn't see him come back. But then again, the movie is really overstuffed and overcrowded, so it would have been tough to squeeze in yet another character. Andrew White writes, Tom Holland's portrayal in his death scene. Wow. I've seen it twice now, and both times completely broke me. Even though I know it'll be reversed, it's still rough to see your childhood hero die. Again, yeah, it was a very good scene. Played very well. But again, for me, a lot of the emotional impact was undercut because, well, this is temporary. He's getting a boo-boo. Spider-Man's getting a boo-boo. It'll be fine. He's going to be right as rain, perfectly back to normal in just a movie or two. Don't worry about it. So it kind of undercut the emotional impact of the scene for me, but still a very, very good scene. Tinas Flado Mendoza writes, in my theater, everyone was silent after the finger snap till the credits. You can almost feel the crowd processing what happened. Oh, yeah. Well, I was in one theater that it was mostly silent. I was in another theater when they started dusting. You could hear, like, people literally screeching and going, no! When, like, Black Panther started disappearing or when Peter started disappearing or all that kind of stuff. So one was, like, dead silence. Like, everybody was, like, deer in headlights. One was having very audible, loud reactions. Water Ninja Frog writes, I'm honestly hyped to see Rocket interact with the entire team since he was basically stranded on Earth with his team dead. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people talking about, is Tony stranded on Titan? He's not stranded there. Remember, the Milano's there. We've got Nebula's there. And she got there on a ship. She can fix anything, so he's fine. But a lot of people not talking about the fact that Rocket is now stranded on Earth with the Avengers. So it's going to be neat to see what they do with him there. Daryl C. writes, didn't Odin whisper only the worthy people spell to Mjolnir in Thor 1? Stormbreaker should be open to anyone. I'm calling Cap with shield and axe in A4. I mean, we've talked about this before. It really depends on which way they go. That could have been, that spell that Odin put on Mjolnir in the first Thor might have really just been for Thor specifically. And until he himself is worthy again to lift it. But remember, not anybody can lift it. Like Thor said, mortals don't have the power to wield one of the Nidavellir weapons. They don't have the power to wield it, and their minds would melt. So kind of the same deal as with Mjolnir. Just can't wield it. Just can't. Stormbreaker isn't open for anybody to just grab and pick up. It's just not that type of a weapon. Pablo Diablo writes, hey, Gio, see some parallels with Thanos' action to Odin's past actions from conquering worlds, adopting a child, then wanting peace. Filth be with you. Yes, but big difference between Odin's method of bringing peace to Thanos' method of bringing peace. Murder half the population. That was never quite Odin's modus operandi. But yes, adopting a child from a defeated enemy, yeah, that's something that he did before. So there's a similarity there. MCV Multi-Comic Verse writes, Bucky's arm goes because Rocket would have kept it. Well, I mean, this was funny to me. A lot of people going, Bucky's arm shouldn't have disappeared because it wasn't his body. Everybody's clothes disappeared with them and it wasn't part of their body. So I really don't know why people have an issue with Bucky's arm, which is attached to him as a part of him. Why they have an issue with his arm disappearing, but they don't have an issue with everybody's clothes disappearing. Right? Everybody's clothes disappears. Like Star-Lord. He had his helmet on, had his gloves, and they all disappear too. So why do some people have an issue with Bucky's arm disappearing, but not with everybody's clothes and gear that they're wearing disappearing? Makes no sense to me. Tom Wisenberg writes, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Stormbreaker's wielder needs to be quote-unquote worthy in the same vein as when lifting Mjolnir, because that was a requirement only added by Odin in the first Thor film. Again, that's debatable, because I think there's an argument to be made that requirement was made specifically for Thor, and that even before that, nobody could wield it. I think that might have been the case before it as well. Maybe not. But even then, other people can't just pick up and wield these things. You have to be basically a god-level character to be able to have the strength to wield it and not to have your mind melt, as Thor kind of put it. Sam Fisher writes, I think what pulls Hawkeye into the fight is his family dying in the snap. Well, I mean, this is the thing. People talk, what's going to pull Ant-Man into the fight? What's going to pull? Half the world's population died. That's what pulls them into the fight. Whether or not Hawkeye's family dies is really not even important. Half the population died. Half of the Earth's men, women, and children died. And maybe there's something that can be done about it because Hank Pym and Tony have an idea about how to maybe fix this. He's getting in the fight. And yes, if some of those people getting dusted was his family, that gives extra emotional oomph to it, but it wouldn't require that. I think he's getting in the fight regardless, one way or the other. KW Garrett 83 writes, does Gauntlet have a reset undo button? If no, it seems that time travel is the only option. If Strange had Time Stone all along, why didn't he go back in time? I don't know that Strange could just time travel. I don't know that the stone, at least in the movies, remember, we're not talking about the comic books, we're talking about the movies. They never said that the Time Stone gives Doctor Strange the ability to travel through time to any time period he wants to, and blah, blah, blah. We've seen him take time, freeze it, rewind it a few seconds, and put it on a loop. And even look into future possibilities. So we've seen him do that. But we've never seen him go, I'm going to travel back in 40 years and stop Thanos from being born, or however old Thanos is, 4,000 years and stop Thanos from being born. They've never really explicitly said in the movie that that's one of the abilities of the Eye of Agamotto. So I'm not really sure. That's really my best answer to that, is I'm not really sure. Italian Okaku 710 writes, I'm glad the original Avengers lived, but given that, well, they didn't all live. Fury died. I'm glad the original Avengers lived, but given that Tony got stabbed and Steve took a god fist to the face, I was like, you don't just do that and live. But this is comic book land, so who cares? Well, remember, Captain America is not just a regular human being. He's enhanced. Also, Tony, he's got built-in medical attention gear to patch him up. So, I mean, hey, people can get stabbed in the gut and live. I mean, that happens. That's not so big of a stretch. They had cut off Tony's head, and then he just put his own head back on and used his armor to fix it. That would have been a little bit far-fetched. But, yeah, a Cap getting a punch in the face, he's an enhanced superhuman being, so that's understandable. He can recover from that. Tony being stabbed, yes, but it's not inconceivable that given medical attention, he can survive that either. So I don't really have a problem with either of those two. Brass Drake writes, I think Gamora will be back. Thanos will do it. I don't know that Thanos will do it. He feels the weight of the cost, but he doesn't regret his action. So I don't think Thanos will do it. But yes, I believe Gamora will be back, which is unfortunate because it completely undoes one of the most powerful scenes in Avengers Infinity War, which was him killing her. And now they're going to undo it. So anyway. Michael Jones writes, Hulk talk in the first Avengers. Remember Puny God? Yeah. One line he said not in front of anybody else except Loki. That's it. Never else did he ever speak. He said one line only in the presence of Loki, Puny God, and that's it. Never again did we ever hear Hulk speak to the Avengers. Never. So that doesn't undo it. The fact that he was able to utter one line in front of Loki himself doesn't undo that. Let's see that. Derek Large writes, what if Avengers 4 picks up a few years later and we find out the universe is prosperous and people are happy? Will some characters not want to go back to the way things were before? That's a lot of ifs and buts or maybes. Like, first of all, even if it picks up a few years later, I don't think you'd see everything is just fixed overnight. So, I don't know. Like, there is the possibility here. What I don't think Marvel's going to want to do is show that Thanos was right. I think what they want to show is that Gamora was right. Because Thanos saying, if I do this, everything will be saved and everything will be better. And if I don't do it, everything's going to cease to exist. And Gamora, she makes the big argument. You don't know that. You don't know that a lot of worlds won't fix their own problems naturally. You don't know that people on that world there won't come up with solutions to their own problems. You don't know that you don't know that even wiping everybody out will automatically fix it. Oh, it did on my one world? Great, congratulations, it worked out once. But you don't know that my world wouldn't have come up with solutions on their own eventually. They didn't on your world, Titan? That sucks, but that's your world, that's not mine. So Gamora was basically the one making the counter argument to him. So I don't know which direction they're going to go with that. I don't know if they want to show that Gamora was right or if they want to show that Thanos was right. Maybe they could have do a Civil War type of thing where, you got the Sokovia Accords, something it's a good idea, something it's a bad. Maybe now in Avengers 4, something, hey, look, as high of a cost as it took, the world's better now. Maybe we shouldn't play with the timeline. Like, who knows? Maybe that's something they could investigate. I just don't know that they will. But maybe they will. Let's see. Nathan C. writes, does it count as undoing and losing stakes if dusted folks only come back if some old guard Avengers somehow trade their lives? No, that's still because you had billions of people die, not just 4 or 5 people. You had billions of people die. They're going to undo that. So how they're going to do that, I'm not sure, but it's not just going to be a quick little one-for-one thing, I don't think. But who knows? Anything's possible. Tom writes, I love that they dusted who they did because that raised the stakes for the OG Avengers and Avengers. For example, their fates are completely up in the air, whereas we know Black Panther, Spidey, Strange, etc. are coming back anyway. I mean, that is that's a true thing, but while it leaves the Avengers 4 fates up in the air, any potential drawback of Avengers 4 is now completely already realized in Avengers 3 because you killed off characters they already know are coming back. So I don't know that anybody's fates are up in the air. I really don't at this point. Jason Robinson writes, Thanos was like an amalgamation of Jor-El and Zod. He kind of was in a way, wasn't he? That's really a neat observation. I haven't heard anybody compare it like that, but that's a really neat observation. Tyler Brusso writes, this movie switched me from DC to Marvel. Well, I mean, I don't know why it has to be one or the other. I've heard several people say that to me, is that this movie now I'm leaving DC behind, now I'm a Marvel fan. Well, why can't it be both? I mean, there's not a requirement in being a Marvel fan. There's no requirement, pre-existing requirement that first to be a Marvel fan, you have to reject DC. There's no such rule. Why not be both? I mean, why not do both? I'm glad, Tyler, that the movie made you a fan, but I don't see why you have to reject your other fandom to embrace this one at the same time. So I don't know why it can't be both and, not either or. Jericho Leon writes, my fanboy wish. Thanos' goal was to keep planets from having too much life. The reason revealed to prevent a hungry Galactus from devouring all life. Well, no, they wouldn't have built that into a story when they don't even have rights to that character. So I don't really see that. Plus, it would make no sense that Thanos wouldn't reveal that to everybody. It makes no sense that he wouldn't reveal that to everybody. It also makes no sense when you got the Infinity Gauntlet, why don't you just snap Galactus out of existence? You got the Infinity Gauntlet, why not do that? So it's an interesting, like you said, fanboy kind of wish scenario, but I just don't see how they've set it up that it would make any practical sense. But nothing is impossible. We've learned that in these comic book movies, man. Drew writes, is the Collector dead? I'm guessing he's dead. Because you see that Nowhere is completely just all burnt in ashes. I think it's implied that the Collector is dead. They don't say definitively, but I believe that's the implication, is that he's dead. Sam Demner writes, my theory is the way Marvel will bring back the Dust Death Avengers is by sacrificing the OG Avengers. Your thought? Again, everybody's saying that, but that doesn't address the issue of the 20 trillion other beings in the universe. It doesn't address that. So is there going to be a theme of sacrifice? Sure, and all good hero stories are. So there's going to be a sacrifice, I'm sure. But OG Avengers trading spots with the other Avengers, that doesn't address the other 40 trillion beings in the universe. Or the other 3 billion people on Earth who were dead and died. So they got to come up with something that addresses that, not just bringing back a couple of heroes. Evil Greg writes, was Cap able to hold Thanos because of Battle of Wills? I'm sure willpower had something to do with it. Also, they seem to have been making Cap stronger. So, yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But Captain America is my favorite character in the MCU. So I got a big thing of joy watching him holding off Thanos like that. I thought that was great. Jeremiah J. writes, I think Iron Man will wield the gauntlet if it comes to it. Since Thanos and Iron Man had specific story arcs moments on Titan, they will pay off in A4. I don't think so. Because number one, he can't, some people saying, hey, can't they go back to Nidavellir and get the dwarf to make another mold and make another gauntlet? The gauntlet's useless without the Infinity Stones. And this little dude named Thanos has the Infinity Stones. So the gauntlet is just a container. It's just a thing that will harness the power of the Infinity Stones. But without the Infinity Stones, it's just a metal glove. So I'm not too clear on that. I'm not too sure on that. Andrew White writes, big theme was we don't trade lives. Think the survivors will have to trade their lives to bring back the dead ones. Again, that doesn't address the billions of other dead people. Lucky Wonder. A-17 is the Iron Spider suit. T'Challa opens Section 17 of the barrier. A clue perhaps? No, completely coincidence. It's kind of like when they announced the title for Spider-Man Homecoming. And people went, oh, one of the secret words that triggered Winter Soldier was Homecoming. Oh, there's a connection. No. Just sometimes, even in comic book movies, they're just coincidences. So I believe this is one of those moments when it was just a coincidence. Cecil1304 writes, hey, John, I feel like knowing the contracts of each actor ruined the suspense of Infinity War for me a bit, because even though character X dies in some way, they have to be brought back for the next movie. Thoughts? Well, first of all, there's two ways of looking at that. One is the contracts of the actors mean nothing. Means nothing. Jose, let me bring something up here. So, for example, Terrence Howard had a 3-film deal to play War Machine. 3-film deal. But they only used him for 1. It doesn't matter what contracts the actors have. This actor's contract is going to be up. They can just sign a new one. We've seen them do that already. This actor's got five more films left on their contract. It doesn't matter. That doesn't mean they're supposed to use them. Hugo Weaving, who played Red Skull, had a 3-film contract to play Red Skull. But they don't use him, and that wasn't him in Infinity War. So don't worry about the contracts of the actors. That means nothing. Means absolutely nothing. What did ruin a lot of things is killing off a character that we already know that we know they've already announced another movie for. Forget the actor's contract. They've already got another movie lined up. They've already got Spider-Man 2. We already know there's a Guardians of the Galaxy 3. We already know they're going to do another Black Panther. That's the part that undercuts the emotional impact of their deaths for me, for sure. But not what contracts the actors have. Because, again, that means nothing. Let's see. Lucky Wonder writes, I'm thinking the 17 is a clue to which OG Avenger dies. Since Ragnarok is the 17th film, it's Thor. Nah, don't. Now we're getting into tinfoil hat wearing kind of conspiracy theory searching. It means nothing. It means nothing. Darren Chase writes, I don't get fake death. If it appears you died but didn't, that's not a fake death. Did Superman's death and return ruin suspense for the DCEU? Here we go. Somebody bringing that up and making that an issue. But the reality is that Superman's death and coming back, that was one. That was one. The problem with the MCU is that they have done it over and 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 over again. Present to the audience, this character's dead. Just kidding, they're not. I mean, they've gone back to that well, and I love the MCU. But one of my number one biggest complaint about the MCU, even though I love the MCU, is that they have gone back to this well of fake killing and fake death over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So much so that, like, what should have been a really emotional moment in Age of Ultron when Quicksilver dies, I didn't give a shit. I didn't care in the least because I did not believe for a second that he was really dead. I didn't believe for a second that he wasn't coming back because we have seen them do this so many times. And again, seeing them do it with Spider-Man, well, I know he's coming back already, which just reinforces later in Marvel movies, I'm going to feel no sense of stakes if a character's about to die because it doesn't matter if they die. Like, oh no, I don't know, Black Widow is fighting Galactus, if Galactus ever comes to the MCU. And she might die. I won't care. Because even if she does die, it won't mean anything. She's going to be back in either 20 minutes or in 2 years in another movie. They're just going to bring her back. There's no consequences. There's absolutely no consequences to the MCU movies. And there's nothing wrong with doing that like once in a while. You know? Somebody brought up Supernatural to me the other day. It's like they've killed and brought back Sam Ordine like 3 or 4 times in Supernatural. Yes, over the course of 13 seasons. 13 seasons where each season has like 20 plus episodes. So yes, over the course of 250 installments of Supernatural, they've pulled that 3 or 4 times. That's not so bad. Once out of every 30 or 40 installments is not so bad. But the MCU has just done it over and 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 over again to the point where I just don't give a shit. I don't give a shit when a character dies now. I still love the movies, still love them, but I don't care. Like when Peter died, it was a great scene, but I don't care because I know he's coming back. Black Panther's dying. Oh, I don't care. I know he's coming back. They killed Gamora. Too bad, man. That could have been a really powerful scene, but and it still is powerful, but it's completely undercut by the fact they're just coming back anyway. No consequences. So that's the thing that frustrates me about the MCU. And I love the MCU, but that is one of the things that frustrates me about it. Emmanuel Ericart writes, "Hey, John, I'm from Argentina." Well, hey, thanks a lot for writing, Emmanuel. We talk about the deaths that's going to back for sure. For me, a safe spot right now. What about who can die bringing half universe? Sorry, Emmanuel, I'm not really... I'll try reading one more time. We talk about the deaths that gonna back for sure. For me, a safe spot right now. What about who can die bringing half universe back? I apologize, Emmanuel. English probably isn't your first language, and I know you probably tried your best. I'm sorry I can't really put together what it is you're trying to ask there. My apologies. John K. writes, "Everyone was trying to stab Thanos, so he clearly can be killed. So why didn't they just kill him while trying to take off the glove in that scene?" I think their big fear was he could survive any shot they give him. I think that was their fear. Their fear was, don't do anything that might break him out of his trance. If we can get the glove off him, we win. Don't risk it by shooting him in the face, because maybe it'll hurt him, but it'll also probably just break him right out of his trance. He's got the Infinity Gauntlet, instant heal, kill us all. So that's probably the mindset they had, I'm guessing, when they were attempting that. Murray, because look, Thor threw Stormbreaker into Thanos' chest, and it still didn't instantly kill him. So what does Iron Man have? If Stormbreaker wasn't going to kill him in one shot, what does Nebula have? What does Star-Lord have? So I think their main thing was keep him in that trance. Our best shot here is just getting this glove off him. Murray for us writes, if Thanos had all the Infinity Stones that were Kyber crystals, maybe he could have done some more destruction. Nice one. I like that, Murray for us. Nice one. Rocky High writes, what do you do with the stones after Infinity Part 2? They probably end up getting destroyed. My guess is they get destroyed. It can never be trusted that these can be kept safe. Like, they did everything they could to keep them safe, and nobody could keep them safe. If another threat like Thanos comes along, you can't risk it. My guess is, it's just a guess, my guess is they come up with some way to say that they destroy the stones. Let's see. Leanne Maxley, Thanos knew Stark. Will Tony Stark seek the Soul Stone? Well, Thanos has it, so I'm not really sure what he's going to seek. Phil Lee writes, chances Avengers 4 opens door for Miles Morales come in next to zero. Sony's using Miles Morales right now. Tom writes, Tony in Avengers Age of Ultron. That up there, that's the end game. How are you guys planning on beating that? Steve, together. They weren't together yet. Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've always known in the MCU is that the end game was Thanos. And it was an alien invasion, whether it's Thanos, the children of Thanos, the Chitauri, whatever other, soldiers and cannon fodder that they bring along with them along the way. We've always known that. And I love the other line. And what if we're wrong? And what if we lose? What if we die? And then Steve says, then we'll do that together too. That's the best part of that quote. Then we'll do that together too. I love that line. Just another reason why Captain America is my favorite character in the MCU. Taki75 writes, the helicopter at end was homage to the Thanos copter? I don't think so. But oh my God, if that helicopter had been purple, oh my God, that would have been so delicious. That would have been so perfect. D. Edwards writes, what if Spider-Man's ending was a message to Sony for renegotiations? Or do you think Sony was even 100% aware of the outcome and signed off on it? Yep, Marvel cannot do anything with Spider-Man in their movies without Sony's 100% write-off or sign-off on it. Marvel cannot do a thing with Spider-Man. Spider-Man can't say a line, can't do a single action in an MCU movie that Sony does not sign off on. So that kind of answers that. RR101 writes, what is your take of the movie score? I like the Avengers first movie score, but it wasn't played that much in this movie. Oh, well, there's the main Avenger score. Bum, ba, 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 ba. It was played a number of times throughout it. I didn't really notice the score that much, and that might be a good thing. But some people have asked me about the score. I didn't really notice it all that much. Johnny Williams writes, heard spoilers in cinema lobby. Do you do this? No. Always, guys, no matter what movie it is. Unless you're coming out the final screening of the day, when you're coming out of a screening and you're still in the movie theater lobby, there are probably people that are getting ready to go in to see the movie you just watched. Have some consideration. Just stay quiet, whisper, or wait till you're out of the theater before you start talking about it. Because I've heard many stories about people having movies ruined for them by earlier audiences coming out of the theater when they're getting ready to go in. So and I know most people don't do it on purpose, but just think a little bit. Make a mental note going into your movie. Hey guys, let's remember that when we're coming out of the theater, let's not talk about till we're out of the theater. And at least out of the lobby, because there are going to be people out there who are coming in here to see this movie, and we don't want to spoil anything for them, right? So, yeah, just make a mental note of that. Athena writes, is Wanda Maximoff the strongest Avenger? Holding back Thanos with one hand and destroying a stone with the other, that's got to take some serious power. I don't think so. I think probably Thor or Hulk are probably the most powerful Avengers. And she wasn't able to stop Thanos, and she wasn't able to hurt him either. She was just able to kind of slow him down as he slowly but surely made his way to her. So she's ranks right up there, though. I think Thor, Hulk, probably the most powerful. Then you got to consider Wanda right up there. Zane Ball writes, Spider-Man can't be dead. Sony wouldn't allow it. Well, of course not. Yeah, Sony would never allow. So sure, he died, but they're bringing him back. And they got Sony sign off on that. Sin Skywind writes, seeing how most of the people dusted have future movies, could it be the ones not dusted actually died? Or the future movies are split timeline? No, I think they killed them, but they're just going to bring them all back. They're just going to reverse it. Then again, maybe they have some really creative idea that none of us have even thought of yet, and they did, and they've got it all written out. We're just going to have to wait and see. Murray for Us writes, how do you market Spider-Man 2 now? Before we get Avengers 4, the trailers probably need to be vague or take place before Infinity War. I mean, that's the question everybody's been asking. And, I mean, right now, none of us can know for sure. Spider-Man Homecoming, I believe, comes out only 2 months after Infinity War. So I don't think you can wait until after... let me rephrase. Spider-Man Homecoming 2 comes out 2 months after Avengers 4. So you can't wait until after Avengers 4 to start marketing Spider-Man 2. So you're just going to have to market it. Yeah. Again, I'm sure they've already got a plan in mind. They didn't schedule things like this without having a plan in mind. They know what they're going to do. But for us who aren't in the know, it presents a problem, but they've already got it figured out. We just don't know what it is they've figured out yet. Adam Douglas writes, felt like it needed one more scene showing Thanos' love for Gamora. Didn't buy it fully 100%. Maybe one of them fighting together. They talk about it in Guardians and Infinity War, and it would have helped seeing it. No, I completely agree. I 100% agree, Adam. I've made that point before. I feel like the movie really could have used that one scene showing them having any kind of a connection. Because the only thing we've ever seen from Gamora towards Thanos is animosity. They needed to show us one flashback scene that shows a moment, even just a moment, where she had affection for him as well, that would cause her to cry at killing him. So, but again, the movie was so packed and so overcrowded and so too many characters, they just didn't have the time to do it, I guess. Andrew Reynolds writes, is there a connection with Heimdall's dark magic and Doctor Strange's magic? I'll be honest with you. My seat keeps sinking. I'll be honest with you. I haven't thought about it, but maybe it's possible. I hadn't thought about it. It's a really good point. Some for us to keep an eye on. LG3 Nation writes, and my gosh, this is starting to fog up a bunch. This movie is making so much money because everyone has superhero movie fatigue and are enjoying seeing all the Avengers die. Yeah, it is one of the big funny things. Watching this movie that is about to become the 4th film in cinematic history to cross the $2 billion mark. And only the 4th film in history. And there are still people out there saying that there's superhero movie fatigue. Yep, yeah, so much superhero movie fatigue. Black Panther just made $1.3 billion. Avengers Infinity War is about to cross the $2 billion mark. So much superhero movie fatigue going on out there right now. Pushman21 writes, first time catching you live. Hope no one has asked us already. Did Black Panther's sister make a copy of Vision? Lots of people suggesting that. Again, if they do, it's a cheap cop-out. You killed Vision in a dramatic way, and you killed him twice. Wanda killed him once, and then Thanos killed him. If you can't kill the robot and keep the robot dead, if you can't even part ways with the robot, I don't know what their hope is for anybody else. So it's possible she did, but that didn't seem to be what her mission was. Her mission was to try to get that stone out. So it's possible. It'll be a cheap cop-out if they do, but it is possible. Act Naturally Productions writes, do you think Tony somehow rebuilds Nebula? Like, what if he turns her into an Iron Man suit so he can get back to Earth? Well, first of all, she's far more technologically advanced than he. Like, she's way beyond Tony Stark, okay? Nebula's beyond Tony. She's fine. There's nothing wrong with her. She's fine, and she brought a ship. Not to mention, remember, the Guardians of the Galaxy got there on the Milano. The Milano's there. They can just get on the Milano and fly home. Frank Bono writes, I feel the only one of the pre-snap deaths that will come back is Gamora. Once the Soul Stone is returned, I believe you'll get a loved one back, and it will be by Star-Lord. Maybe. I do agree. I think Loki's gone. I think Heimdall's gone. And I do think Gamora's coming back, which is unfortunate because it's going to undo that magnificent dramatic moment in Avengers 3, and it's going to completely undo it, which is too bad. And I love the character. Don't get me wrong, I love this character. And I love how Zoe Saldana plays her, but they did this amazingly powerful scene, and they're going to completely undo it by bringing her back to life again. Let's Watch writes, I like Iron Spider-Man in Infinity War because Peter was suffocating up in the sky, so he had to have it just saying, make John like Iron Spider. No, that's all bullshit. They only wrote that into the scene to create an excuse for the Iron Spider suit. That's all. They wouldn't have had Peter in the situation. The only reason they wrote Peter being in that situation where he was running out of oxygen was because they wanted to make it necessary for him to have the Spider-Man suit. They easily could have written it that he went after that ship, he's attached by his web, and he finds a way to get into the ship, all that kind of stuff, like he ultimately did anyway. They could have just done that. Instead, they wrote it specifically to justify having the Iron Spider suit. So anyway, that's how I see it. Dakota Barber writes, Thanos is my favorite comic book villain. He had many memorable lines in the movie, and I loved his conversation with Doctor Strange on Titan. I loved his conversation with Strange. I loved his conversation with Gamora. I loved his conversation with Tony. He is, if not the greatest comic book movie villain of all time, he's number 2. It's either him or the Dark Knight's Joker, and I kind of thinking it's Thanos. Let's see. Mario Espinoza writes, Kenneth Branagh was voice of distress call. Yeah, we heard Kenneth Branagh, the director of Thor, the first Thor movie, which is one of the most underrated comic book movies of all time. He was that opening voice we hear in Infinity War of the distress signal being sent out from the Asgardian ship. Michael Dillon writes, hey, John, a huge fan of the show. I wanted to ask, do you think we could be getting a Grey Hulk in Avengers 4? Been asked that a couple of times. A few people asked for it. I don't think so. I don't think we're getting Mr. Fix-It, the Las Vegas, muscle man. I don't think we're getting that, but it's possible. Maybe it's a Red Hulk. Maybe it's Grey Hulk, whatever. I think it's just going to be Hulk. Could be wrong, but I think it's just going to be Hulk. RR number 1 writes, by the way, I'm a big fan of you since Man of Steel review. Thank you so much. Do you think DC will have a comeback and get to that Marvel box office level? Anything is possible. If they reboot, it's certainly possible, but we're here to talk about Avengers Infinity War. Mike Zambrano writes, loved Infinity War. I think Hawkeye loses his family post-snap, and that's what makes him become Ronin. Did you notice Thor's new eye color is like Heindel. I didn't notice that. No, I didn't notice that. And again, we've already talked about whether or not Hawkeye's family dies and if that gets him back into the fight. Kevin Campbell writes, I think Thanos is talking to the audience when he says, I hope they remember you because Iron Man, because he dies in Avengers 4. I don't think so at all. Look, Iron Man may die in Avengers 4, but I don't think that had any... No, I don't agree with you on that at all. Tasty Dash writes, loved when Thanos shot Mantis with the reality gem and turned her into a spring. The sound effect and visuals were unsettling and creepy. Loved it. Yeah, not just her, but like basically when he sliced and diced cubed Drax. Which begs the question, why didn't he just kill them? Like, if he's just going to kill them later by snapping his fingers and kill them anyway, why didn't he just kill them in that moment? Like, so I don't know. Was it because they're his daughter's friends, so he wanted to kind of stay in some kind of good standing with Gamora? I don't know, but it's an interesting question. Act Naturally Productions writes, have you seen the toys Hasbro, Lego, and Pop Funko are releasing? Hulk bursting out of the Hulkbuster armor. Was this a deleted scene? No. It was not a deleted scene. It was all misdirection. Robbie Martin writes, is it possible Captain Marvel will have an alternate timeline or time travel? The pager scene at the end of the Infinity War message back through time. Again, it might be through time. It might be to another world. Might be to another dimension. We're just going to have to wait and find out for sure. Jacob, Cobb writes, hey, John, do you think Miles could get his power during this time that Peter is dead? Maybe take the mantle. Remember, there's a time gap to Avengers 4. Again, no, Sony is planning on using Miles Morales. They've got an animated film with Miles Morales coming. I do not believe they're letting Miles Morales in the MCU. Devin May writes, do you think Infinity War could be nominated for an Academy Award? And if so, which category? Too early to tell. Yes, it could be. Probably more on the technical. Sound design was fantastic. Sound editing, sound design, visual effects, clearly. Costume and makeup awards. I don't think any of the major ones, like not Best Director, not Best Actor, not Best Picture, but I could see it getting a couple of, but again, it's far too early to tell. There might be 50 other movies that come out this year that are all way better than Infinity War in all those categories. Maybe not. I'm just saying it's too early to tell. It's only May right now. So let's just hold off on the Academy Awards talk for now. Tinas Flado Mendoza writes, if you watch again, see if you see the Thanos Scarecrow from comics. I think I saw on his farm at the end. I'll tweet you a pic of Scarecrow. Okay, I'm not really sure what it is we're talking about, Tinas Flado, but I will keep an eye open for that. Luna Comics writes, I would joke and say, spoiler alert, everybody dies, but it's actually a spoiler right now. Yeah, you can't, a lot of times you can say when a big movie's come out, spoiler alert, everybody dies, haha, but that's actually a spoiler alert for this one. Twy Griff writes, Brana has a cameo as Guardian Distress Call. Yes, he does, as we already just discussed. Jonathan Paul writes, everyone thinks Thanos kicked Hulk's ass, but I believe because Thanos had the Power Stone, it gave him what he needed, strength, to make it easy. Oh, I have no doubt. I have no doubt about that. You got to remember, yes, he kicked Hulk's axe, but he had it with the Power Stone. The stone that even if he touches a planet's surface with it, will kill all life on a planet. He was wielding the Infinity Gauntlet being powered by the Power Infinity Stone. It would be, now, maybe Thanos wins in a straight-up fight with Hulk. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But, yeah, don't think Thanos can just beat Hulk just like that. He did wield the Power Stone, and Hulk still got in a few good shots and had Thanos against the ropes for a moment. Don't forget that. Let's see. Michael Solaric writes, Cap fights Thanos with Stormbreaker next Avengers. Again, he's mortal. I don't think he can wield Stormbreaker, although I would lose my mind if that would be amazing. Nate Piacentino writes, I sure hope Iron Fist disappeared. You and me both, brother. You and me both. Carlos16NG writes, do you think Iron Man returns to Earth or does he go on a space adventure with Nebula? No, he goes back to Earth. We've already seen some production shots from Avengers 4, and Tony is on Earth. And it looks like he's a member of S.H.I.E.L.D., but he does go back to Earth. We know that. Let's see. Trevor Riches writes, over under 99%, John Wick finds Thanos in Avengers 4 because he got a new dog that went away in the snap. Of course, that's a reference to a comic strip. If you haven't seen the comic strip yet, go on Google, go on Google Images and look for Thanos John Wick dog and find this comic strip that somebody put together. That's just genius. It's like Thanos going, nothing can stop me. And then like Doctor Strange saying, I'm paraphrasing, like, oh, we got a plan to stop you. Nothing can stop me. Ha. And then John Wick shows up. Hey, guys, has anybody seen my dog? And like Thanos has just killed his dog, and then Thanos suddenly looks really worried. Look up the comic strip. It's far better than what I'm explaining. Jonathan Penna writes, do you think Korg makes an appearance in Avengers 4? I don't know. I do believe Korg got off half of Asgard got off the ship. We know that. So I think Korg, Meek, Valkyrie, they're all still alive. Whether we'll see them in Avengers 4 or some future Thor movie or whatever, I'm not sure. I do think we'll see them again. Not really sure about whether we see them in Avengers 4, though. Ren Davis writes, he didn't use the stone on Hulk. It never glowed. It's whenever he added a new stone, we saw this power surge go through Thanos. He's a powered being. Like maybe he doesn't specifically turn on Power Stone to use a certain, but he's already powered up because the moment he drops a new stone into the gauntlet, it's like a Highlander quickening. You could see him powering up and you see him leveling up, if you will. So you never saw the Power Stone glow, but it doesn't matter. It's already a part of him. It's already a part of him. James Dinsmore writes, John, I agree that the scene with Child Gamora was wonderful, but why do you think she was smiling after Thanos says everything? Could mean several different things. It might just be a vision that he's having. That might not actually be Gamora. Like we've heard the Russo brothers confirm that was in the Soul Stone, but they didn't confirm that was actually Gamora. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. Who knows? But even if it was, she might have smiled thinking, good. You did it, but I'm glad it cost you everything. I don't know. Who knows? Let's Watch writes, this 3-part Infinity War spoiler discussion is going to be better than all 3 Avengers films combined. Turns out we're on part 6. Let's watch. Valerius262 writes, when Thanos reaches for Cap, we see them all and not in the trailer. Then the shot focus on Cap's face shows 3 stones as opposed to the 2 in the trailer. We've covered that. That's something I didn't think they were going to do, and they did it. And that's the great thing when you can come into a movie like this where there was a whole ton of stuff I said, they'll never do that. And most of it they didn't, but some of the things they did, like CGing out some of those stones. And there were a number of things I said, they're for sure in this movie going to do this. And a couple of them they did, but a couple of them they did not. And that's a great thing when you can get a movie that still keeps itself a little bit unpredictable. And they did a great job with that. Mick Parker writes, Justice League and Avengers place. Who fades? Oh, I don't know. Who cares? Woken Joe writes, I didn't like that fact Hulk just said no because he got his ass kicked. I thought it might be more he would say than no. Well, Thor is not a conversationalist, number one. Number two, think about it. You're the Hulk. You have never been matched and never been equaled. You are the Hulk. And for the first time in your existence, you got smashed. Just smashed. Outclassed and destroyed. That'll break you. That'll break you. And I think there's some really, especially when the Hulk is mentally and emotionally very not evolved. He's very immature that way. He's like a 5-year-old in many ways, right? To deal with something like that would be massive. And I think it's quite deep the way they did that. Let's see. Dermo1 writes, you can tell Thanos loves Gamora because he threatens to hurt Nebula for Gamora's mistakes and lies. Yeah, he didn't want to hurt her. He was willing to hurt other people. Bad expression of love, by the way. I love you, so I'm going to hurt this person. Like, bad expression of love. Zombatron5678 writes, what was Odin doing while Thanos was killing Gamora's planet? The Asgardians are supposed to keep the peace. Why let Thanos go on a spree? Well, remember, there are many, 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 many worlds. But if I remember correctly, Asgard is mainly concerned with 9 realms. There are 9 realms that they're concerned with, that they consider part of their protectorate. So I would think that whatever Gamora's world is, it wasn't one of the 9 realms. Like, it wasn't Jotunheim, it wasn't, Midgard, it wasn't all that. It was something completely different. So that's my guess. John Donuts writes, is the priority of the stones was flawed. I personally feel they should have attempted to destroy the time stone rather than the mind stone. It's not integrated into someone, and if broken, Vision's death would not have been in vain. Well, that argument was had in the movie, but the sorcerers were not willing to let that happen. They have made a vow to protect the time stone at all costs. And Tony certainly made the argument we should destroy the time stone, but the sorcerers weren't going to let that happen. And if the sorcerers weren't going to let that happen, there's nothing Tony Stark can do about it. So that's part of the narrative, man. That's just how it worked out. Caleb Bradford writes, and by the way, the other Avengers, Cap, Black Widow, they have no idea what's going on with Tony and Doctor Strange and the Time Stone. They have no idea what's going on with that. So you got to keep that in mind too. Other than what little that Bruce was able to tell them. Caleb Bradford writes, the reason people are saying Cap and Black Widow are an item is because when Bruce meets her again, Falcon says this is awkward. Well, it's because they were an item and he just up and disappeared for 2 years and now suddenly is back. Hi, Nat. That's what was awkward. It wasn't because Cap and Black Widow are an item. They are not an item. All right. It was awkward because they were becoming a thing. They were becoming romantically involved. And then Bruce just up and left. He just up and left. And gone for years. And now just suddenly, hi, everybody, I'm back. Hey. That's what was awkward. Anyway. Kevin Campbell writes, I say Vision backed himself up to the net like Ultron, and we get Jarvis 2.0 in Avengers 4. Again, it's a cheap cop-out, but it certainly is one of the possible outs they may do, but still doesn't undo the fact that it's a cheap cop-out. The Dane Martian writes, Ant-Man could have just made the gauntlet tiny and unwearable, no? We've talked about that in one of the previous versions. I mean, it's a possibility. Unless you can't do that while it's already on his hand, and maybe no matter how small you make it, it's still Infinity Stones. Infinity Stones are already tiny. Like, they're this big. These little signets, they're just like this big. So it probably doesn't matter how big or small they are. They still have their power, regardless if they're the size of mountains or whether they're the size of an atom. They probably still have the same power. Osman Cardona writes, love your show, John. Cap is my favorite character, and though he had some great moments, I felt Iron Man and Thor had better development arcs throughout the film. Any thoughts on if Cap will get any more screen time next film? Well, I think it's fair to say that both Thor had more screen time than anybody other than Thanos, but Thor and Iron Man probably had more character development. But don't forget, like, Civil War was all Captain America. I mean, it was supposed to be a movie with all these characters, but it really was a Captain America movie. It's okay that some other characters got more development time in this movie than that one. So who knows what Cap's role is going to be in part 4. Timeless Rage writes, do you think the last scene of Thanos at the lodge was Gamora's homeworld? No, I don't think so. It didn't look the same. I think it might be a vision of Titan, or might be some other world, or might be Earth. Might be somewhere on Earth for all we know. I'm not really sure, but I don't think it's Gamora's homeworld. Lindro Fonseca writes, does Thanos have healing abilities in the comics? Yes. Yeah. He has a healing factor in the comics. Don't know if that applies to the movies or not. Blackguard 4 writes, with Thanos now controlling all the Infinity Stones, could this be the way for Marvel Studios to introduce mutants into the MCU via the Reality Stone? No, I don't think so. Kevin Campbell writes, I think Avengers 4 will be a replay of Infinity War with time travel, a la Back to the Future 2, where we see the survivors of the snap go back and change events. That's the popular theory right now. That's what everybody kind of thinks is what they're going to do. It's even the thing, specifically how they use time travel, who knows? They haven't really gone into that. But I think it's definitely a possibility. I think it's the most likely scenario right now, and that seems to be the popular opinion at the moment. Let's see here. Joel Muchler writes, still haven't heard your opinion on Iron Spider in the film. I've mentioned it many times. Ben Rayner writes, I would have loved Senator Ross and Bruce reunion. You mean Thunderbolt Ross? He's not a senator. He's Secretary of Defense, I believe. He's Mr. Secretary. Or was he Secretary of State. I can't remember. He was either Secretary of Defense or Secretary of State. One of the two. He wasn't Senator. Kevin Campbell writes, both Captain Marvel and Avengers 4 will debut their trailers at the end of the year. How can they market them without one spoiling the other? I mean, that's the question everybody's asking. But again, they know how they're going to do it. Remember, they had this all planned out in advance, so they know what they're doing. I can't figure it out, but they know what they're doing. I think we'll start to get a better idea once Captain Marvel and Ant-Man come out. Digital JP writes, after 18 years, don't you think Thanos deserved this movie? Avengers had their movies. Some are saying not enough Cap or Thor in Infinity War. Wasn't 18 enough? Well, I mean, that's just the thing. This was a movie that was overcrowded. The whole crux of the story is Thanos and what he's doing. Therefore, you've got to give the lion's share of the time to him. And the movie did a great job balancing out how much screen time they gave to everybody else. But the fact of the matter is, it was an overcrowded movie. There were too many characters in this movie to do much more than what they actually did. So I thought they did a pretty good job with the amount of characters that they had. Dirk17 writes, any chance upcoming sequels will be prior to the events in Infinity War? That would give more meaning to the dusting of several characters. No, it would just undo it. It would feel more pointless. Look, we already know that Ant-Man and the Wasp happens before it. We already know that Captain Marvel happens before it. Are you just going to keep doing that? Is that going to be the cheap go-to thing? Oh, now this movie's going to be before it. Now Spider-Man Homecoming 2 is going to be before it, and everything's before it now? No, I don't think that's what they're going to do. Last couple of ones, and we'll finally be done. All 6 parts of this spoiler discussion video. Meat Puppet 007 writes, John, over or under 40% that Adam Warlock shows up in Avengers 4. I'm going to take the under, but I wouldn't go like 10%. I wouldn't go 15%, but 40% is actually a pretty big number. So I'll take the under on 40. It's possible, but at 40%, I'll take the under. And the final message regarding the Avengers Infinity War spoiler discussion, part 6. And the final part is, the honor goes to Eric Blank, who writes, do you think Thanos will cameo in Captain Marvel? Somebody else asked that before. It's possible. It is certainly possible. I would set the over-under number on that at 27%, which is a legit shot. So I'll go as high as 27% as possible. So unlikely, but definitely possible. So that's my feelings on that. All right, guys. Finally, it's only taken us a few weeks, 6 parts, but we are now done and through the Avengers Infinity War spoiler discussion. My apologies that it took so long to get to all the questions. I was just not prepared for how many comments and questions you guys would send in, but I do appreciate that you did, and we got through all of them together. So thanks for being here, guys. All right, guys, that will do it for me for the final installment of the Avengers Infinity War spoiler discussion. My name's John Campea. Thanks a lot for joining me, and until my next video, bye-bye.